Hello there. Welcome to the Baku American Center's online platform. We are really happy today to be talking about Earth Month. All month long, we are observing Earth Month, and as a result, we are very happy to have with us two members of the U.S. Embassy to Azerbaijan's Green Team, the unit that is responsible for executing environmental sustainability both at the embassy and helping, as appropriate, elsewhere in Azerbaijan to provide their expertise when requested. So before we begin, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Richard. I am the Cultural Affairs Officer at the embassy. I also serve in a lesser capacity on the Green Team, and I am delighted to be joined today by two of my colleagues. Asif Nawaz is an economics specialist at the embassy. Dr. Nawaz also has taken the lead on the economics, science, technology, and health environment portfolio here in Azerbaijan. And also on today's program is Jordan Plikerd, who is the embassy's facility manager, who is the brains and the energy behind the Green Team. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives the embassy has taken to reduce our carbon footprint, our environmental footprint here in Azerbaijan. So to begin, I'm delighted to introduce again Asif Nawaz, who's going to talk about the origins of Earth Month, or in the U.S. Earth Day. Asif.
Okay, thanks, Richard. First of all, I welcome our audience with my colleague Jordan. And let me go over briefly about today's Earth Day presentation structure. So in normal circumstances, the presentation would be a little different, and I may not read all the bullets. But in this online session, I will read most of the bullets for our listeners' convenience. And also sometimes I'll be looking sideways because my presentation is on another monitor, and my control panel is in front of me. So, just wanted to make sure that you guys know that. And so regarding the structure of the presentation, first, I will go over the Earth Day origin and background. And then we'll go over the Earth Day movement today, whatever is going on today with respect to the green activities in Earth Day. And after that, we will share some of the U.S. Embassy Green Team initiatives in Azerbaijan. So these nature-friendly activities are in line with the Earth Day essence. And later, towards the end, we will share a small video clip which will highlight some recycling in the U.S. And of course, not to forget, we also want to listen to our audience. And we want our audience to share that in what capacity you guys are promoting eco-friendly activities in line with the Earth Day spirit. So we would love to share recommendations and suggestions from our audience on this forum at that time. Now let me start. So let's say every year, April 22nd, we celebrate the Earth Day anniversary. And this year, in April, it would mark 50 years of that Earth Day movement. And the Earth Day environmental movement started in 1970s. So how did it start? In fact, the American economy and various industries flourished in the 1960s. Oh, I'm sorry. And with that prosperity, Americans also saw an increase in leaded gas through massive and inefficient automobiles. With that also came an increased industrial smoke and sludge, and of course, the air pollution. So, and you can see that. Let me go to the next slide. And at that time, there were some misconceptions due to lack of research and study. So air pollution was considered sign of the smell of the air pollution was considered sign of prosperity, and health threats were not evaluated. Of course, the industrial growth and expansion without proper waste regulations, were one of the factors that led to automobile emissions, and plastics were not even, at that time, the plastics and automobile emissions were also not at the radar. Okay, just a minute. In fact, my screen froze, so hang on there. So what were the let me just go over it. With that prosperity, Americans also saw an increase in leaded gas through massive and inefficient automobiles, and with that, I just mentioned that an increase in industrial smoke and sludge and air pollution came. So what were the culprits? And the obvious culprits were the oil spills, toxic dumps, factory and power plant emissions, air and water pollution from industrial waste, raw sewage, pesticides, so loss of wilderness, and escalated wildlife extinction. And at that time, Rachel Carson, she was an American marine biologist, author, and conservationist. So Rachel focused her attention on environmental problems and harm caused by mostly synthetic pesticides. And so she wrote a book. The name of the book was Silent Spring, so published in 1962. So around 500,000 copies were sold in 24 countries. And that initiated the cascade effect, of public awareness in the environmental sector. So, and then things like a massive oil spill in 1969 in Santa Barbara, California, the anti-war protest movement in the 1960s and 70s channeled the needed energy to this environmental consciousness to mark 1970, the official start of the Earth Day movement. So not to forget, at that time, the senators Gaylord Nelson and Pete McCloskey, and the activist Dennis Hayes in making April 22nd the official Earth Day to promote eco-friendly, awareness. So how did the Earth Day became global? So there were a group of environmental leaders that promoted Dennis Hayes to organize and promote the Earth Day campaign for the planet. Earth Day went global by 200 million people in 141 countries who mobilized to lift environmental issues onto the world stage. Earth Day 1990 gave a huge boost to recycling efforts worldwide and helped pave the way for the 1992 United Nations Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. And then President Clinton awarded Senator Nelson the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his role as Earth Day founder, the highest honor given to civilians in the United States. So how about the Earth Day today? Earth Day is the largest secular observance in the world to create awareness and reinforce measures for the nature-friendly environment through collective and individual efforts, and by developing and implementing regulations by policymakers around the world. As the effects of climate change are becoming more visible, increased efforts for a clean environment also continues. Citizens of the world are rising to demand far greater action for our planet and its people. Proactive citizens and determined youth are receiving the 1970s pro-environmental ambitions. Digital and social media are also playing an active role in promoting eco-friendly activities in local communities, and also engaged proactively in implementing nature-friendly measures globally. So we have to keep our efforts going for our and our next generations to come. So green team let me now move to the green team activities with the US Embassy. And as Richard mentioned in the beginning, that the green team promotes eco-friendly activities. In turn, there are two parts. One is the internal green team activities, which are the activities within the US Embassy to promote nature-friendly environment in line with the Earth Day spirit. And then there are external green activities, which the US Embassy promotes by engaging with our local partners in Azerbaijan. So some of the green team external activities I will go over. The US Embassy Green Team collaborated with various entities and NGOs like As Green or Oz Green, Rotary Club, and Park Boulevard to set up Christmas tree and snowman display from recycled plastic bottles. And I will go over some of the pictures. I hope that you have seen that in Park Boulevard during the Christmas time. Special acknowledgements to our green team member, Ms. Nagan's efforts in making the snowman and Christmas ornament single-handedly, and LES staff building the tree and setting up the bicycle at Park Boulevard in record time. So the other things are US Embassy Econ team accommodated Sarita Vaid of Creative Creations or Eco Bags to put her recycled bags in the embassy store to raise funds for the refugees. So these are some of the pictures at Park Boulevard. You can see that Jordan, my colleague Jordan, who will go over the internal US Embassy green activities, and he's on the bicycle, and this tree is made from the recycled plastic bottles. So when Jordan is trying to ride the bicycle, this light lights up. So this was, the LES team with our DCM and also the As Green and Rotary Club members. So I will go over one by one some of the activities which the green team is doing externally. So the green team members are already working with the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Azerbaijan experts to in arranging and promoting ecotourism and parks management. So we are trying to get experts to help them, guide them. And then Embassy Econ and green team members visited Azerbaijan paper, cardboard, and plastic recycling facilities, where we went over the like plant operations. I went with Jordan to see how we can offer any of the US expertise to enhance their operation. We are also collaborating with IDEA, the International Dialogue for Environmental Action for Food Waste Management Initiatives. So the university, the US Embassy is working with other US partners to arrange speakers and experts, on these topics through various programs. Econ officers attended an international workshop on waste management practices event on November 14th, an initiative organized by AmCham Azerbaijan and sponsored by Coca-Cola to promote recycling and waste management practices. So US Embassy also tries to accommodate the request of various Azerbaijani entities for different guest speakers, subject matter experts, and training requests in waste management, ecotourism, and other related green activities through US embassy programs, including Fulbright program. The Green Team also looked into promoting electric vehicles, especially Tesla vehicles, but it is not feasible at this time due to cost and service issues. And before COVID-19, Green Team was researching into providing expertise in recycling used batteries. And on the MENR, which is Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources request for possible cooperation, the Econ team is also looking into providing plastic packaging waste management and sharing expertise through international experience on plastic packaging, waste management, and recycling to promote eco-friendly culture in Azerbaijan. So now I will turn to my colleague, Jordan, for the green initiatives taken by the internal green team.
Thanks, Asif. So my name is Jordan Plikerd. I am the facility manager here in Baku at the U.S. Embassy. Growing up, I used to watch the TV show Captain Planet. If any of you ever get the chance to watch some of those old shows about fighting pollution, by all means, please do. So the tried and true thing about being green is reduce, reuse, recycle, and you need to do it in that order. Basically, reduce. If you can eliminate the source of pollution, you're done. If you have to use it, try to use it as many times as possible, and then when it can no longer be reused, and then you recycle it and try to make something new out of it. But reduce, reuse, recycle, the 3 R's are very important guidelines to, promoting a green environment, a sustainable environment. Next slide. So different things we've done to, reduce the single-use plastics. We've gotten rid of plastic bin liners in every single trash bin in people's offices. Where we have to use bin liners for like food waste in kitchens, we make sure that we purchase biodegradable bags so that when they are in the landfill, they do biodegrade. One of the things that we've done to also save money as well as be green is convert the U.S. Embassy uses diesel boilers to heat the building during the winter. We converted one. The building really runs off of one boiler at a time. Two is for redundancy to make sure we don't freeze. So we converted one of those diesel boilers to natural gas, and we brought in a natural gas line. This immediately gave us a 27% reduction in our CO2 emissions. Other emissions are a little harder to calculate, but CO2 is easy, and it's a nice large number to be able to show how we are being greener. Also, it does end up being very cost effective and will, over the life cycle, save the U.S. taxpayers money. So that's kind of how we approach a lot of our green initiatives, is what is referred to as the triple bottom line. People, profits, um, and the planet. So if you can do something that meets all three of those goals, it's typically a sustainable project. What we've also been doing is basically letting people know their utility costs. Like a lot of people do not know what they're doing, what utilities they're using, and how much and how it compares to other people, even in the same apartment building. So we were able to share that information, say, hey, you're doing X, but so your neighbor's doing Y. And then people realize that, yes, I can turn off the lights when I leave. I can take a, quicker shower and get in and get out. So people can do small things and those add up. Next slide. One thing that we've done is, working with utilities, you basically get a monthly bill. It says you used this many kilowatt hours, and this is what you owe us. What we've gone ahead and done is we've installed a real-time electric monitor that, in real time, you can see how much power you're actually consuming. You can see your demand, you can see your power quality, to really, be able to see how your facility is running. This can show you a lot of data. Are things being turned off in time? Are things, being left on? So a utility monitor is a great step to actually see what you're doing. Because if you don't monitor something, you can't manage it. You can't manage your utility costs and your utility rates and your utility usage unless you can actually dive into the numbers and see what you're really doing in real time. Um, a lot of places around the world will give you your demand, a demand bill, and a usage bill. So you really need to know how your facility is doing. Maybe you don't want to turn on all your compressors at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because that's peak time. If you start them up with a soft start, at 1:50 in the afternoon, you can get that inrush amperage down to reduce your peak billing. This allows the utility company to not have to build as many power plants. If you don't have as many power plants, you don't really have all the pollution associated with those. Next slide. Another thing is just working with people. A lot of times we posted signs like, hey, if you're the last one out, turn off the lights. But in a lot of work areas, you just never know really if you're the last one out. So we installed timers and occupancy sensors and vacancy sensors that will automatically turn off lights when they're not in use. And this is a great savings because it's really reducing things that and eliminating things that are not needed. And that's one of the first steps in being green is eliminate what is not needed. Next slide. Another thing is all the waste associated with paper towels. Yes, paper is a renewable resource, but when you look at all the effects of having to cut down a tree, transport the tree, turn the tree into paper, take the paper, make it soft to be paper towels, transport it to your office building, and then use it once and throw it away, and it gets carted to a landfill. So what we really want to do is eliminate waste. And certain types of paper towels are more wasteful than others, like the trifold paper towels where you grab it and you get 5 to 20 paper towels at once, and it's more than you need for most occasions. So we've eliminated those. We're using roll paper towels that give you one at a time. That way, you only take what you need. And we also provide electric hand dryers to cut down on that paper reduction. But we also allow, for convenience, and some people, are hard or die-hard fans of paper towels, and we allow them that option. But we do make it in such a way that it affects the human behavior. Instead of grabbing 10 trifold paper towels, they end up getting 1 or 2 pieces of paper from a roll towel dispenser. Next slide. Another thing that's especially important in Baku is water. On a whole, water is very expensive here compared to a lot of places in the world due to Baku's arid climate. And this is something that, walking around and seeing, all the green, realizing what that cost really is in Baku to keep everything green in the parks. The semi-arid climate is not conducive to a lot of plants. So when you are selecting plants for your home, for your area that go outside, you really want to choose things that do not require a lot of water, because Baku's just not set up for that. And if you do end up having, to use a plant that does consume a lot of water, going with a drip irrigation system is by far and away the best way to go. So you lose a lot of water when you use a sprinkler system. When it throws all that water up into the air, a lot of it evaporates off, and you had all this water that Baku turned into potable water, filtered it, it was pumped to you, and then you just basically let it go into the atmosphere. It didn't. All that work didn't serve anyone. But if you can get the water to the plant roots where it's needed, where you want it, where the plant wants it, drip irrigation, basically it's a rubber hose, holes in it at the right spots that, water just trickles in for a couple hours instead of just spraying it down and getting everything really wet in a minute. This trickle of water ends up saving up to 40% of your water usage. So it is a great thing to do in a climate like Baku, is to stop using the giant sprinkler system, stop using the hose where you're spraying everything up in the air. You're losing so much water. And water is a very precious resource. They say that there's going to be wars within the 100 years about access to water because it's becoming harder and harder as the world population grows. Next slide. So one great technology that has come up over the years is light emitting diodes, LEDs. And LED power consumption is so much better than anything else on the market. We started with incandescent, we went to fluorescent, and now LEDs are the way to go. They have unbeatable power savings. There's very little heat generated from an LED because all that electricity is being turned into light. The reason the incandescent light bulbs were so inefficient was a lot of the energy that went into trying to make light was wasted as heat. So then not only you had all these lights in buildings and you had people in there, then you had to have air conditioners because the lights produced so much heat. So it was kind of this catch-22 system. So when you change over to using an LED as opposed to an incandescent, your utility rates plummet. You're using far less electricity, so the utility doesn't need to make as many power plants. You are reducing the cooling costs because you don't need to run your HVAC, your cooling chillers to cool the room back down because you're not producing that waste heat. Issues that are in between the time frame of going from incandescent to LEDs, you had fluorescent lights. The problem with fluorescents are the life cycle issues of disposing of them because they have mercury vapor in there, and mercury is a very harmful substance. And every single incandescent light has, or every single fluorescent light has mercury in it. And disposing of those the right way is very difficult to do. So LEDs are definitely the way to go. Next slide. Also, reduce maintenance. I'm a lazy person. You can put an LED in and you can forget about it. So then you don't have to worry about it. They're really, really the way to go. Next slide. Yeah, and all that heat savings, all the efficiency savings really reduce your carbon footprint and help reduce global warming. They're really just the way to go. There's just no other way to say. LEDs are fantastic. Next slide.
This is New York City's main recycling facility. We take in all of the residential recycling in bins and bags throughout the 5 boroughs. It comes here and we sort it out. We're really working within this zero waste by 2030 goal. We need to make sure that everything that's out there that is recyclable gets into a bin, gets into a bag, makes its way here, and that we have the capacity to process it.
Oh, that was great. Thank you both very much. I'm sorry, Asif. Is there more to come of the presentation?
Yeah, in fact, just there was, our side, internal and external activities, and now we encourage our listeners and audience to go over some of their experiences and what they are doing at a personal level or at a community level, for Earth Day or environment, and how they are promoting these nature-friendly activities. So we want to listen to them. If you have any comments over there, you can share it with us if there is anything there. And,
yeah, that would be great. Yeah, we do. Please, by all means, use the comment bar to ask questions or make comments. Ask questions of our presenters or any thoughts that this may have catalyzed in your heads. While we're waiting for people to comment, I would say I enjoyed that video. It certainly showed what's possible at the high end of the scale. That's a lot of investment, obviously, a lot of commitment. But is there something that the people who are tuning in and watching now can do at home? I mean, Jordan, I know that you're the busiest member of the embassy in terms of putting procedures and some low-tech equipment in place to help us reduce the amount of energy we use, reduce the amount of waste we generate. What can people at home do, would you say? What are some good things they can do to help reduce their carbon footprint?
So one thing would be using something like a reverse osmosis filter at home, so that they do not need to buy water bottles and plastic bottles and bring those in. Also, it helps out your back that you're not carrying as many water bottles around, to have potable
Fewer
water.
trips to the doctor, right?
Yeah, where if the water where you're living is not considered potable, reverse osmosis is very good for that. Also, have reusable grocery bags. They have special lightweight net bags out there to buy your produce in. They have more heavy duty reusable bags for your final after your checkout to use all those, take all your groceries home in. Those are two very easy ways. Have a plastic water bottle, carry that with you that you fill up at home, use it throughout the day. It, what you can do to reduce single-use plastics, which is a very much a consumer issue. Please do, where you can, reuse what you can.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I've read that the water bottles in particular are a big percentage of the single-use plastics that are that are going into our oceans and our streams, and even taking up space in our landfills. So that's a great idea. If you can use a reusable water bottle, that's certainly it's one way we can reduce the amount of plastic going into the earth. I see we do have one question. Tural asks, doesn't making those devices which automatically turn off lights use more energy? I guess he's saying the manufacturing of the devices possibly creates more net energy than is saved by the automatic light reduction. Jordan,
Yes,
you can probably speak to that.
Yeah, there is that argument. The new light switch replacing an existing with a new light switch, it does have inherent waste with the old light switch. If you were going to be making a brand new facility, having everything automatic would be the way to go. But you really have to look at the life cycle cost of issues, not just your upfront initial waste. So over the life cycle of the building, which will be at least 20 more years is what we're looking at. It's how long these switches and dimmers and occupancy sensors will work. It also, if you had a switch that just turns off one single light, yes, I agree, that would be a waste. But if you have the timers as we put on that turn off 30 lights or more at once, then that life cycle payback of both utility savings and energy reduction, kilowatt savings, does add up and is beneficial for the environment. Now, every situation is different, and you need to do a life cycle cost analysis each and every time. Another thing, with same could be said about HVAC. If you have a new, very efficient, ductless mini split for AC, you can, save a lot of energy compared to what you're using existing. But what is the life cycle cost?
Excellent. So in the near term, it's obviously using more energy, but presumably and hopefully over the life of the installed life of the equipment, it will generate net savings, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Tural asked another question where he actually hypothesizes that making factories to recycle also produces more CO2. Those machines do use a lot of energy. I think we've got a bit of a skeptic in Tural. Jordan, do you want to, or Asif, do you want to talk about that?
Good, Jordan.
I'll go ahead. So, everything you do is going to produce some CO2. The question is, what is the net effect? There are recycling factories that then use the compost to create biogas. And that biogas then produces, we burn it, produces steam, and the whole factory is a net zero process because they're using the raw ingredients that they have. So it depends how you set it up. And how you're doing it. Every case is going to be different. Yes, anytime you make anything, you're going to be producing CO2. It's whether or not what you're doing is for the benefit of everyone, or you're making, fidget spinners that everyone is going to use and, throw away in a couple years. So really, everything is a case-by-case basis, and you do what you can, and you run an analysis every single time. But if you did not have a recycling facility like that, then everything ends up in a landfill, and you're running out of landfills in this world. Just the space that is required just to throw our trash away. So if we didn't recycle, frankly, at this point, we would be drowning in our own trash. So you have to do something, and you should do it the right way.
Yeah, that sounds right. Tural, it's totally helpful that you're asking these questions. They need to be asked. We can't accept any assumptions, so that's very useful. But I think Jordan made a good case for why again the net impact is positive of taking the energy and the resources to create a facility like that. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Asif, what do you your overview of the genesis of Earth Day was quite interesting. Do you see the global environmental movement continuing to evolve in any interesting ways? Actually, before you ask that, I see we have another question from the audience. Ali Mamadov asked how to recycle textile waste and how to use this recycling in business. Do either of you have any insight on this specific type of activity?
Not on textile fabrics itself. I think one of the issues with textiles for like cloth fabric is all the different dyes. So what ends up happening is that they end up being chewed up in a process where they are then meshed together, but it really will never become back to the virgin material that you need to produce clothing again. But you can use those fibers for other downstream items and for different process.
Right. I see we have another question, which looks like it's right up Asif's alley. Irada Mamadova, related to Ali Mamadov, I wonder, are you watching at home together? Asks, how is it possible to join green organizations? Asif, I know you interact with a lot of the local environmental community here. Do you have any advice for Irada?
Thanks, Richard. Yes, in fact, there are different organizations, and one of them is As Green, the NGOs, Eco Baku, and also Rotary Club. Those are some of the NGOs, who are actively involved in promoting green activities. And let me go over a couple of points. As Green and Rotary Club, they try to the Christmas tree the display we had. So they try to have activities where they promote those kind of things, and Irada can join them, or their information is on the net. And then our other partner is Eco Creations, or Baku Eco Creations. They make recycled bags, to raise funds for NGOs. So those are some good causes, and I'm happy to share that information afterwards, or if Irada needs it.
Sure. Why don't we even put in the comment section at the end of the session some of the names of organizations with maybe even a link to their websites. That's a great idea. We can help drive some participation from our local audiences with some of these organizations that are doing such great work locally.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will put the names there. And coming back to your question that, where is the Earth Day movement now? And, how is it doing? So if you look at even Azerbaijan, this recycling culture and eco-friendly culture is being promoted, and there are NGOs, like I mentioned, those are working on that. Like IDEA is one of the main NGOs. They are also working on different realms in environmental areas. So the good thing is that the waste management system, I think, is improving slowly. You can see in the schools now they have points for collection and sorting the recycling. So there is a start, and I think it will slowly go to the point where you see in New York City like big facilities where all the recycle items are getting recycled again, for the use. And on the other hand, I went with Jordan to Azerson facility, where they are improving their plant, and they definitely need some extra help. But their main problem was that they were not getting enough waste to recycle, but they were like collecting it, and whenever they have, they come to that point where they have enough recycle waste, then they can run the plant. So everybody is working different entities in different areas, but we don't see it. That's not that visible as compared to some other things. So things are happening on a regular basis, and it's good to volunteer and like Irada mentioned, and keep on encouraging those activities.
Excellent. We have another question. Etirom asks, is it possible to implement eco-friendly educational tools like VR glass, Raspberry Pi, mini computers, digital storytelling, and online education more quickly? And then he puts in parentheses, because of logging. Etirom, do you mean that using on-screen educational materials as opposed to printing books, which require trees to be chopped down? Is that what you're getting at? Assuming that's what's behind Etirom's question. Do either of you have any views on how quickly we can get these types of or the world, I guess, can get these types of resources up and running quickly so as to reduce the pull on our forests?
Well, one, there are areas of the world that are able to produce lumber in a sustainable way. It is slow, but there is, if you can produce lumber in a sustainable way, it just takes a lot of effort. The world is going more and more towards digital technology, so this will slow down, hopefully eventually, on people traveling, and you can be able to see the world in VR from your living room and not have to board a plane and fly to the rainforest to interact with a gorilla or monkey or anything else. But there's just no way to know how the world is going to progress at this point. Right.
Good point.
As far as the educational tools, are there. I see the iPads and the computers. So one doesn't have to print the paper books and use those. That is in line with the eco-friendly activities.
Right. Yeah, you do see a lot of movement towards these things. It does seem that printed newspapers in most of the world are sort of relics of a different era. I can't remember the last time I picked one up. So I think we're running close to the end of the session. We're delighted to take any more audience questions if there are any more. Otherwise, Jordan, Asif, any last... Ali comes back and says, how can we collect and recycle marine plastic garbage? There are 5 garbage patches in the oceans. The problem is getting bigger and bigger, which certainly is the case.
People have experimented with different types of boats that have a kind of a water wheel that can collect the trash that gets into the waterways. The best solution is basically to not make the trash, and then if you do make trash, get it in the right streams to get recycled. But a lot of places around the world just let the waterways take so much trash away from their cities, and it gets into the ocean and gets into this garbage patch. The problem is that it's just so huge, to be able to do much of it at that point in time. It's a lot easier if you stop it at the source as opposed to letting it get out into the world. So that would be my viewpoint, is you stop it at the source as opposed to letting it get to that point.
That's a very good point. On the other hand, Richard, we have also beach cleanup days off and on. So, that is another thing to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do things at the local level to improve our immediate environment, for sure. And I know the embassy and various local organizations have organized efforts to clean up stretches of the Caspian coastline, which is a really nice way, as they say, think globally, act locally. But what Jordan says, reduce the amount of plastics we use, and we'll reduce the amount of plastics going into the ocean is another way of acting locally. The choices we make definitely do shape the environment around us. If there are no other questions, I think we are running to the end, unless there are any final points from either Asif or Jordan.
I would just encourage everyone to review some Google images of the atmosphere in very polluted cities around the world pre-COVID and now, and seeing, how much air pollution that, people have been making and people have become accustomed to. There's a lot of places in India you can see mountains for the first time, and people in living memory don't remember seeing those from their city. So there are some silver linings in this whole COVID pandemic.
Right. Well, hopefully that's a really interesting point. I have seen some of those photographs. Actually, my last posting before coming to Azerbaijan was in Delhi, and I remember there were days I couldn't see across the street. So the idea of being able to see the Himalayas now is absolutely remarkable. Fareed thanks us for a presentation. You're very welcome, everybody, and asked, is it possible for getting context for further discussions? We will we'll post some information in the comment box ourselves, including contact information if you'd like to ask more questions on this. And Asif is going to put down some of the contact details for some of the local environmentally focused organizations who would be happy for your involvement in their activities. But for now, again, this is April. It's Earth Month at the U.S. Embassy. So thank you so much for joining us. Asif, Jordan, thank you very much, not only for taking time out to talk about Earth Month and the efforts the embassy is taking, but also for your work on the Embassy Green Team. We're hoping to do our part to reduce the damage we do to this planet, which is our only home. So with that, I think we will, unless there are any last questions, call it a day, and thank everybody for tuning in. This has been great.
Good, thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.